What's up, everybody? This is Noa Dalzell calling you live from the American Airlines Center in Dallas. And apologies for the delay in getting started. Just having some technical issues, but we are all good to go. Just couldn't get my camera on. Called our producer, and he said, restart your computer, and that did work. So feeling a little bit stupid right now, but excited to chat with all of you and to answer some questions ahead of Game 4. This could be the last live stream. I'm just doing these until the Celtics win the championship. That was always my intention. And this might be a shorter series than I'd initially anticipated. And so, as always, feel free to write your questions, comments in the chat. I'll go through for about 25 minutes today. Warm-ups are already happening. Kristaps Porzingis is already out there warming up, and we'll be going live again in about 30 minutes. Myself and Bobby Manning from CLNS. And for those of you who don't know me, I cover the Celtics for Celtics blog and for CLNS Media. Really excited to just get the chance to share a little bit of updates kind of on what's going on the ground. We had shoot-around this morning. It wasn't really open to the media. We didn't get to see much, but we did hear from Joe Mazzulla and from Sam Hauser. A lot of Sam Hauser recently. I feel like I've been posting a lot of his clips. I am wearing green. It's a coincidence. We don't have a formal Porzingis update, honestly. It'll probably be at some point during this meeting. And so I will, we might have an update, we might not. But in either case, I think Celtics should be fine without him as well. Joe said he was doing better yesterday. He also said that he's doing everything he can to play. The injury and the extent of it and the severity of it is still a little bit unclear to me personally. I think everybody has spoken to their own doctor and read their own articles, and it's so rare that it's hard to point to this was expected to happen. I think it sounds like surgery is inevitable, but even that, I'm not exactly sure if that's 100% a certainty. All I know is that he's been walking around, moving fine as far as what we're able to see. Yesterday, he was shooting around in practice, and for the 30 minutes that was open to the media, he was a full participant. And then he said that he also, Mazzulla said today that, he did everything they did yesterday, but they also just did like a walkthrough. I don't think they really did much. That's kind of the Porzingis update. I see a lot of people are asking about Porzingis. I feel like this entire playoff run has been people asking about Porzingis' health. It's kind of funny because they've obviously only lost 2 games. There hasn't been like much conflict or things to be worried about, but I feel like Porzingis' injury status has been like the main topic of conversation. So I'm going to start going through some of these. That was the KP update. But again, 5 o'clock is probably, or 5 o'clock Central Time is probably when we'll have some sort of update. Yesterday, it was right before we had the press conference. We'll be hearing from Joe in about an hour. So we may have another update then if he doesn't give something more definitive before. I don't know. I was really trusting my intuition for a while, and then yesterday I was confident he was going to play Game 3 just based on the media availabilities that he had, and then obviously he didn't play, and so I'm no longer trusting my instincts on this one. But I think it would be great if he could contribute in some sense, if nothing more than for just being a part of this journey. I think that even if he doesn't play, though, he was key to games 1 and 2, particularly Game 1. So I do think he's still part of this postseason run, but obviously it definitely impacts. He wasn't a full participant the way that some of the other guys were. So just scrolling down here, someone's asking if I will be at the watch party in Boston. I'm not. I'm in Dallas at the game. But I have I posted a couple clips from the watch party last game, and I think that was a little bit misleading. I was not there. Some of my friends were there, and so they were sending me clips to share out for particular moments that were particularly exciting. I think it's really cool that the Celtics are doing this, and the TD Garden is filled up. I heard it's like $100 tickets to get in tonight, so it's people are certainly trying to be there in that environment, and in hopes, I guess, of seeing the Celtics win the championship and at least being in the building, even if you're not, at the game itself. JT legacy game. I've heard some people say this as well. I think Tatum has had a good playoff run. He hasn't had a spectacular playoff run from a scoring standpoint, obviously. And if you look at the numbers, I think he's got 36% from the field in the series, and certainly that's not up to his standards. He is being heavily guarded, oftentimes doubled. I think they're running a lot through him, and I think his decision making has been pretty good, and that's why they're in the position that they're in. He hasn't had that like Tatum kind of vintage performance the way that we saw like Game 7 last year in the conference semifinals versus Philadelphia, or the one that comes up a lot is when the Celtics were down 3-2, going to Milwaukee and having a 46-point game. Like, he has that game like that. And he honestly hasn't had to, because they've only lost 2 games this entire playoff run, and other guys have just stepped up so much. But obviously it would be fun to watch. It'd be cool to watch to cap this run off. I don't anticipate it, because I don't think anybody's having a legacy game tonight, because it hasn't been the nature of this this team. That nobody's really exploding for 45. Brown had his 40-point game. I think Derek White had a 38-point game versus Miami. But outside of that, that's not the kind of numbers that we're seeing individuals on this team put up. And honestly, I think that ends up being a benefit more so than a weakness. A question about how will we celebrate? I will be writing articles. So I got a couple things in the works regardless of whether they win or lose tonight. But one of the projects that I've been kind of working on for a while is talking to different fans about what kind of their connection is to this team and to the city. And so I will probably be finishing up some of those transcriptions later tonight. Obviously, pressers, everything will be a while. So, I've never covered a championship celebration. This is my first year covering the NBA, so I'm not exactly sure what it's going to look like from a coverage standpoint. But I'm sure there will be a lot to talk about, a lot to break down. And if they lose, also a lot to talk about, because I think this is one of those games where a lot of people are taking it for granted, but I don't think the Celtics themselves are. From everything that we've heard from them, I think they're actually really kind of keeping in perspective the fact that they need to win another game versus a very good team, and they're not jumping ahead of it. We talked to Peyton Pritchard yesterday. He was asked, how was the group chat after game 3? Were people super excited? And he said, no, because we haven't done anything. We just broke here. It's business. We're not celebrating anything. That's kind of been a common sentiment throughout this, these last few days. We've talked to a lot of players. As I mentioned yesterday, for those of you that were on my live, there's a bunch of media availabilities on media day, which was yesterday. We heard from both coaches. We heard from 15 players. And so that's the general consensus amongst the Celtics team, is that they're not jumping to the next step here. They're not getting ahead of themselves. They're not feeling overly confident. They recognize the fact that there's still a very important game that they need to play. And Missoula this morning, we spoke with him. He was asked the same question in about 20 different ways, and he said that too. He said, you guys are really finding creative ways to ask him the same thing. But essentially his message was, we're not thinking about a championship right now. We're thinking about the margins. We're thinking about rebounding, taking care of the ball, all the little things that we always think about going into games. And obviously this game has extra significance and weight, but at the end of the day, it's the same as every other game. And that's been his approach, his mentality throughout this entire season, is keeping things in perspective like that, and making sure to kind of highlight the fact that the regular season game and postseason game are effectively just a basketball game, right? Despite all the outside noise and the narratives and everything. So yeah. Question here about Scott Foster. I have said this before. I don't keep up with the refs as much as most. That being said, obviously I know the reputation and the implications and all that. I did not know that the Celtics are 8-0 in games he's officiated this season. I'm never concerned about a particular ref from I don't know. I don't really buy into that stuff, like the rigs and all those things. I know a lot of people do. I've had countless debates with friends and people about this stuff. I just don't think it's really a major factor. So personally, it doesn't mean much, but I know I got a lot of DMs this morning about Scott Foster refereeing this game. So I know it's a popular sentiment. Question about closing this out on the road. I think there's advantages and disadvantages to both. Obviously, closing it out at home in front of your home crowd is particularly special, but they also have the parade, and also there's going to be a lot of Celtics fans in the house tonight. Prices went way down. I think they were $500 tickets now. I know a lot of people that are making the trip over here, a lot of fans that are just from online and things. I think there would still be an environment of celebration and people here. Obviously not the same as in Boston and TD Garden, but yeah, certainly. Question here about Sam Hauser. I actually just wrote an article about Sam Hauser, so feel free to check that out. Effectively, I think Sam Hauser is one of the keys to this team being successful. And honestly, a lot of it is this idea that he is someone who spaces the floor, somebody who hits open shots, but also that you can't exploit him. I think teams try to exploit him. They try to prevent him from. Oh, sorry, I'm seeing some people are having trouble hearing me. I'll speak up. I'm in a press room with other reporters around me, so I'm trying to not be too loud. But yeah, I think, he's 5 of 11 from 3 in the series. And so that if he can continue to shoot like that, like he was 3 for 4 the other night, he was, I think, 2 for 3 in game 1. Like, it's small numbers, but it makes a huge difference when he's hitting at that rate because, first of all, the margins are small here. Like, the Celtics fell down by 13 in game 1 in the first quarter, right? And then he hit 2 threes, and so that plays a role, right? That is impactful. You could have been down by 19 if you hadn't hit those 2. And then secondly, I just think, they don't get a whole lot from their bench right now, right? So Sam is kind of one of the few people that you can count on for shots, and Peyton Pritchard, I think, has had 1 shot in this series. So you'd hope you can get something out of at least one of them. And I think Sam is well positioned, just the way that he's being guarded and the way that he is getting those looks. It was 0-5 in game 2, but easily could have knocked some in. So, we spoke with him this morning. He's really excited, obviously. He said he's kind of keeping things in perspective, and he's had his lows. I mean, he shot 7% from 3, I think 1 of 14 in the conference finals. Still stayed on the court for double-digit minutes, and he's still been one of the higher plus-minuses on the team. Tatum at 31 last game. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think he's putting up still good numbers. I don't know that they're offensively like the best number he's ever put up, but I think the narrative that he's had like a bad playoff run or a bad offensive playoff run like does not personally resonate. We did not have a media game. We were honestly too busy doing work, and by the time we got out of here, it was very late, and everybody was hungry. So no media game in Dallas. We did one in Cleveland and Indiana. Maybe we'll do one in Boston. But there's the final, covering the final is just a lot more going on than covering other series. Like there's, every day there's multiple hours worth of media availabilities. Yesterday we were here for hours talking to different players, and you're getting all these quotes. So you want to write all the stories using those quotes, and verbal stuff like the video hits and all that. So it just ends up being a lot more. So we did not have time to play basketball, unfortunately. I think MK brings up a good point. Like a 7-0 run on the road is pretty wild. They have yet to lose on the road. They also haven't lost since game 2 against Cleveland. So this is, I believe, a 10-game win streak, which I think is tied for their longest of the season, which is pretty wild when you think about it. When you think about it's hard to beat like the Wizards 10 games in a row, right? So just not to have throw straight at the Wizards, but beating playoff teams, especially teams that made it to the finals, won the Western Conference. It's pretty remarkable that they're in this position, and people maybe have complaints about some of those wins not being perfect, right, or not necessarily. Why did they blow the 21-point lead in the fourth quarter of last game, or why did the Pacers game go down to a couple of plays? But at the end of the day, you win, right? It doesn't really matter how you got there, and it also requires a lot to even be in the position to hit a Jaylen Brown corner 3, right? Like I think you always look at it in the reverse. Appreciate all the kind comments towards my coverage here. It's very nice. Yeah, like I said, it's been a really awesome experience, and having people to tune in and ask questions. There's like 1,200 people on this right now, which is super cool. I will definitely keep doing something after this, just not like a daily live stream, and probably something that can be listened to more later on as well. Because I know right now, if you don't tune in live, like this kind of expires. But there will be some sort of podcast or something launching, so be on the lookout. Someone asked about Banton and Stevens. Yeah, any player that was on the roster this year gets a ring. Lamar Stevens and Delano Banton included, who were both traded mid-season, and we'll be sure to, not they don't always accept it, but I do think that they probably will. Question about KP, and I don't think that there's any update on him. What I will say is I'm looking at CLNS right now. This is a video that CLNS just posted of him going through his normal workout. So he was not on the floor before game 3. He is on the floor for game 4. I think he's in better shape. I think he's going to try to do anything he can to play. But again, I don't think you want to jeopardize his long-term health, especially considering he's a part of their long-term plans, and also just because he's a vulnerable, very tall player who has been prone to injuries. And they're in a good spot, so they don't need to play him if he's unavailable to play, right? There's no reason to put him in a dangerous situation as long as they're down 3-2, right? So my thinking is, he only plays if he's really going to be able to be helpful. It's my dad's. I'm going to be home for Father's Day. Regardless, I'm flying back tomorrow night, so I will be home. Question here about Xavier Tillman's father passing away 3 weeks ago. Yeah, he posted about it on Instagram. I think it's something that, from a media standpoint, we didn't talk about explicitly. Wasn't sure exactly how much he wanted to know, how much he wanted people to know about this or whatnot. Honestly, it crossed my mind. Like I said, this is my first year covering a team, and I think I wasn't sure if it's something that people should ask about or whatnot. And kind of hoped one of the more senior reporters would kind of figure out how to cover that appropriately. And I think that Adam Himmelsbach from the Globe wrote a beautiful article about him that came out this morning. If you haven't checked it out, you should. But it was kind of a reflection on how Xavier Tillman is doing. I think I've mentioned this before, but he's just been like a really awesome player to cover. Just super kind, clearly a great teammate, and just very friendly to the media and everything. So it's a great article. Obviously, just terrible that he's going through that right now, particularly in the middle of the postseason run. And it sounds like it was unexpected. But you should definitely, if you want to kind of hear more about that, definitely check out Adam Himmelsbach's article on the Globe. I tweeted it earlier today as well. Okay. Sorry if I'm out of sync. The Wi-Fi is not the best, so I see some. Okay. I don't know any Latvian. Seeing this question, I do know that I know a lot of new Latvian Twitter followers because everybody. Okay, sorry, I'm getting distracted by. I don't cover any other sports. Who do I think wins Finals MVP? I do think right now Jaylen Brown is best position for that award. I still think they're only 3 games in, so Game 4 is a significant chunk of that. And again, like I don't want to get carried away here. Like there's still another game to be played, maybe multiple games to be played, right? So, I think the Finals MVP conversation could be a little bit premature, but in any case, I think Jaylen Brown has been the best player for this team throughout this playoff run, and in particular during this series. And I thought that he kind of solidified that in the second half of last game when he had 24 points, very efficient in the second half, and then on the stretch hit a couple of times. I wrote about it for Celtics blog, but I thought that one basket that he hit kind of like punctuated his legacy that he's really established during this run, really in a career-defining postseason run. So I think he's kind of the front runner for this right now. I think Tatum has a case, but probably needs to have an efficient scoring night tonight. I don't worry about this too much. I believe the only Boston media member that has a vote is Gary Washburn. I see someone here ask that. I don't know for certain, but that was the case for the Eastern Conference Finals. Outside of that, I think it's mostly national, and then I'm assuming a Dallas media member as well. I think Pete's right. I do think Kristaps Porzingis is. I do think he's going to try to put some pressure on the medical staff. It has been very clear that he's not trying to, that it's not in his hands, it's the medical team's hands. But I think that he's going to do everything he can to get out there if he's able to. My favorite player when I was younger was Rondo. I think it was more so just like the age that I was, and it was like I really became a fan like at the end of the Big Three, but kind of right after that. And so that was probably the peak of that. And I'm actually writing an article for SB Nation. It's like the parent blog about like my journey as a wannabe reporter. I found an article that a job that I applied for when I was 13 to Bleacher Report. It was like a senior level NBA manager job, and I put together this application. Obviously did not get the job, but it reminds me because I did write about Rondo before that. Most memorable game of the season. I want to say I think it was the Jaylen Brown game where he hit the game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Like just like the deflection and then hitting the corner 3 and then Jayson Tatum taking over in overtime. It was just such an uncharacteristic of previous Celtics teams win, like to win a game where everything's kind of going against you and down the stretch to make all those big plays. I think it was just an awesome game. And then honestly, like recency bias, but like this final series, this most recent game was pretty remarkable. Just like watching everything unravel and then watching them kind of like get it back together and down the stretch. There were some big regular season games as well. Like the Timberwolves game stands out. For some reason, I remember the Pistons game very well, just because like I feel like the entire nation was watching that game because everybody was so clued into the Pistons because they were on that historic losing streak. So, but definitely, this postseason run hasn't had like a ton of huge moments because a lot of these games have been blowouts. But I think the whole Pacers series was like just phenomenally exciting. And honestly, if they had bigger names on that team, people would have been more clued in nationally. Like people thought that was a boring series, but it actually was like great basketball. And I thought the Pacers were super impressive and kind of a well-oiled machine, despite the fact they didn't have like that star power, especially when Hopper went down. Question here about Felger and Maz. I don't listen to sports radio. I don't know, but the lowest tier, I mean, I think the whole like bubble championship thing is just so stupid because you have it every couple of years. You have a team that is deemed that. Like I feel like the Raptors get this all the time. The Lakers, during the COVID year, I feel like even the Bucks get it because of like the Kyrie Irving's injury. So I don't know. I find it that you just have to just view championships as championships. And obviously there are runs that are like particularly impressive, like the 2022 run of the Celtics that pulled that one off. That was one that really stood out. But yeah, I don't really buy into the narrative that like certain runs are impressive or aren't impressive, that sort of thing. Okay, I'm gonna try to wrap this up because we're about to go live again with CLNS in about a minute or two. Yeah, I really appreciate people for appreciating the coverage. It's been the KP block. That's a good one for an exciting win. That was a really fun one, and just it was kind of an out of character one, but it was super fun. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up. We'll be going live literally in like 5 minutes. I guess I'll just say my gut feeling. I think the Celtics are going to win. I think it's going to be close though, but I do think that it's going to win. Okay, great. Thanks so much, everybody. Catch us. Well, I'll have a lot more coverage just throughout the game, and then we'll literally go live in like 5 minutes. So if you want to hear more about tonight's game, check out CLNS All Access, and please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you are not currently subscribed. It's live from the NBA Finals, Noa Dalzell NBA, and feel free to subscribe. It's not going to be. I mean, maybe they lose tonight, and then I keep going live every day, but it'll become something soon. So appreciate it. Have a great night, everybody, and enjoy the game.